My name is Shrey Muthu, and this is my analysis of my infographic. I'm in the 1 o'clock Tuesday, Thursday English 206 honors class. So to give some background about what my infographic is about, it is about the Right to be Forgotten law, which is a law from the European Commission that basically says that people can request their information to be expunged from the internet if they don't want it to be on there. So for example, if they want to ask for an embarrassing photo to be deleted, or if a criminal wants like their very minor offense to be deleted from the internet because it's affecting the jobs that are available to them. So in this infographic, I'm proposing that the US needs to adopt its own version of a right to be forgotten law. So I feel like key aspects of the infographic are the title, the layout of it, the simplicity of it, the focus of it, how the infographic tells the story. So if the information is logically organized, if all the information builds upon one another in a rhetorical way, and whether the infographic keeps the target audience in mind, avoiding bias and keeping aware of how the information is framed. So the target audience stays receptive to the ideas proposed, and the sources at the very bottom in order to maintain that ethos. So the first thing I'm going to talk about in my infographic is the title. So the title of my infographic is The People's Right to be Forgotten. And I feel like my title is effective because it's very objective. It tells you exactly what you need to know about the infographic. It's very straightforward. You know exactly what the infographic is going to be about. So when you glance at it, you know exactly what you're going to be getting into when you're going to look at this infographic. Next is the layout of my infographic. So I started off with the burning problem here. So the burning problem is the balance of the freedom of expression and the right to privacy. So I'm going to explain what that means a little bit. So the freedom of expression is basically the value that Americans place on like the First Amendment, for example. So us being able to say what we want to say and not have it being censored. So the internet, for example, in China is very censored because the government wants to control the information that people have there. But in our country, we wouldn't be okay with that because we want the information on the internet to be very objective so anyone can have access to it. So we can all use the information in the way that we want to. However, we kind of have to balance that with each individual's right to privacy. So we all want to have certain information about ourselves not be broadcasted on the internet for everyone to see, because the internet really isn't a free-for-all for everyone, but should just be like an objective place where we can all get the information that we need. So a law like the right to be forgotten would allow people to balance the freedom of expression and the right to privacy. And that's kind of why I included the scale, so people could associate this balance initially with that symbol, because people are more likely to comprehend a complex idea like this one if a simpler symbol is associated with it. So this symbol here. So underneath the burning problem is the support for the problem. So here another claim is made. So another claim is made. So people should be part of how the decision. People should be part of the decision-making process for how their information is used. So whether that is for the internet not to collect anything at all, for the internet to pass along our personal information to third-party marketing to companies like Netflix, Amazon, Google, Microsoft. So all of them can use our information, exchange it among themselves, and profit off of our information essentially. And then the third facet is the personalization of online browsing. So for example, when you're surfing on Amazon, you're looking at something and then a few weeks later, that same item pops up. They're like, hey, you want to purchase this item? So that is the second part of the layout, the support. This is also part of the support, the 3 steps to enacting a right to be forgotten law. So this list very clearly defines what it entails to enact a law like this. So people can associate the three red subheadings with the 3 main steps and then get the details they need underneath it in the bullet points. And then the probing question. So this is another aspect of the of the layout, the probing question. So did you know data breaches exposed 4.1 billion records in the first 6 months of 2019? So you're asking the probing question, the important thought-provoking questions the audience needs to realize in order to see the seriousness or the exigency of the issue at hand. So the infographic is built rhetorically in order to consider that people will be more receptive to the support if you provide a thought-provoking question, because you're giving them the support or the evidence and then presenting a question for them to kind of question that evidence, for them to get their own interpretation, kind of make it an interactive experience for them to interpret that evidence on their own. And then the last part of the layout here is the kairos. So the kairos, or the call to action. So talk to your senators, join the fight in creating a more equitable internet for everyone. So while providing all of this information is great, all of this information is great, all the way down, you kind of have to provide a way for the audience to even get involved in this whole movement in the first place, so you can see the validity or the meaningfulness of the information. So the third aspect of the infographic that's really important is the simplicity of it. So I stick with 3 colors essentially. So we have this golden yellow color up here, this muted gray color, and this blue color. So I kind of divide the subsections based on color and the main call to action in that darker green. So by sticking to like 3 colors at a minimum, people or the audience will not get distracted by the colors and focus on the information rather. And then the fonts are not really like fancy or for stylistic purposes, but rather to divide the information and keep the main like important information in the larger block text, like up here, like where the title is, and the smaller subheadings in this open sans, like simpler font. And none of the infographic is super busy, so even the visuals are kept really simple, and then all of these symbols here are kept incredibly simple for the audience to understand. And then the most colorful image I use is down here with these hands. So not including really busy graphics or detailed graphics kind of allow the audience to create a symbol system within their head, associating a specific simple symbol with a concept or a topic. And this is more effective than trying to crowd the infographic with a bunch of, visuals that may not be necessarily memorable to the audience. So infographic is really focused. So all of the visuals really do serve a purpose. So this scale, like I mentioned earlier, it's at the forefront of the infographic. It really emphasizes what the infographic main focus is, the balance of the freedom of expression and right to privacy. And then these 3 visuals are very focused on directly aligning with the support. So tighter privacy laws means tighter laws, which relates to that gavel. Encrypted blockchain, a chain link represents it. It's directly related. IBF, representative of the IBF and the internet balancing formula. So everything is really focused. No unnecessary information is provided. And then, like I mentioned earlier, the layout really does help tell the story, and the symbols are arranged in a way that text and pictures are balanced. So for example, here I include the balance and the writing, and then here I also include a image, and then here though, we have our symbol system here, but we have our picture here, and then our pictures on this side, but our other pictures on this side. So we're kind of offsetting the symbols and the text in order to create kind of a balanced infographic, so people aren't overwhelmed with too many visuals at once or too much text at once. So it's really balanced. And then last but not, the target audience. So the target audience of this infographic is, the target audience is people above 20 years old, middle to upper class Americans, and people who are informed of current events. So the reason that I can make the justification for all of this is because people above 20 years old are going to be the ones really concerned about their privacy, but also aware of the country's demand for the freedom of expression. And the middle to upper class Americans are the ones that are going to have access to technology, the ones that will be able to take the time to go talk to senators, the ones that really kind of have those higher position jobs that have the education and knowledge to be able to go talk to a senator in the first place. And then people have to be aware that a problem exists in the first place. So people who watch the news, people who are informed, people who are educated are going to be the ones that are responsive to an infographic like this, because you have to be aware that, for example, Google is not just a search engine, but a data mining operation. You have to be aware that there's an ulterior motive there, not just something for us to use, like like I mentioned, a search engine. So lastly, is the sources, which are at the very bottom here. The sources are down here. Sources. So it's really important to include sources and in-text citations. So I do include a couple in-text citations here. So Netflix, The Great Hack, 2019. And then Susie's Internet Balancing Formula, the source can be found here at the bottom. And Winder 2019. So really including the in-text citations and the sources at the bottom allowed possibly the audience to go back to their sources, get a little bit more information before they go talk to the senator. They also provide me, the maker of the infographic, a lot of ethos, considering that the information I provided can be fact-checked and it comes from a credible source. It's not just from like Wikipedia or something like that. So ultimately, what makes my infographic so effective is the simplicity, the flow of information, and the fact that I keep a target audience in mind. So that is it for my analysis.